doing a blessing of the backpacks right here at church at the 10 a.m. Service. So if you come in person, bring your backpacks with you, and if you're at home watching, just have your backpacks ready next week. And we'll do that blessing here in this service. When we bless something like backpacks, we're just acknowledging God's loving care and presence. And we're doing that blessing so that each of you knows that God is already present at your schools. And that God will go with you as you enter into school and as you go back. And I know it's been a strange year for a lot of you. And going back, there may be some anxiety. And so the hope for us is that God is there already, preparing the space for you and traveling with you as you go back to school. So bring your backpacks next week, have them ready, and we'll do that at this point in the service next week. Thanks, kids. So this is my penultimate Sunday with you at Redeemer. I'm excited about being able to say that word. And it's also my very last Sunday preaching at Redeemer. I'll be here next week, but this will be the last time that I'll be preaching from this lectern. It's been a challenging and rewarding, wonderful year of learning for me. But I really don't have any problem acknowledging that this year was not exactly what I expected. In a year that has been overwhelmingly virtual, even after 12 full months, I still regularly meet members of the congregation for the first time. Many I've only seen once or twice at the drive-through pickup stations that we set up for Christmas and Lent, and even then in their car with masks. And most embarrassingly, when I saw Steve Swenson, the church accountant, outside the church last week while I was having coffee with Grant and Jay, I was surprised to discover that Steve had a mustache. I see the guy at least once or twice every week, but we're always in the church office with our masks on. And I just didn't expect to see a mustache under there. Well, you learn something new every day. And even though we can joke about it, the losses of this year are real. So much of our lives have changed this year, at work and school, at home, with family, and right here at church. And now, with the Delta variant racing through our communities, I suspect that many of you, like me, have felt a mix of frustration and anger, despair, probably some grief over these last few weeks. I mean, are we really doing this again? Unlike last time, we had all the resources and opportunity to beat this variant. We had the miracle of highly effective vaccines, and we just didn't get it done. And so we're left asking, are our lives about to be disrupted again? Are we going to lose more friends and family? And what do we do with all of these pent-up hopes and plans and expectations? This isn't the way things were supposed to go. This isn't what we expected. But it's right here, into this context, into our grief and anger and frustration and uncertainty, that we encounter this bread of life metaphor again in the Gospel of John. But this week, there is something different about the metaphor. Actually, there's two things that stand out to me about the bread of life metaphor in this week's text. First, and most obviously, there's the really graphic and honestly kind of gross description of eating Jesus' flesh and drinking his blood. In fact, for the first 3 centuries or so, many folks actually thought that Christians were cannibals because of this practice and because of texts like this. Out of context, and read literally, these misunderstandings about the followers of Christ are pretty reasonable, actually, aren't they? Jesus doesn't say that we should eat his body here. He says that we should eat his flesh, the gooey, bloody, meaty bits. I think it's right that we're a little bit grossed out by this because, quite frankly, it's gross. And because it captures our attention, it draws us into the text, and it reminds us of the language that John used in chapter 1. And the Word became flesh and lived among us. God enters this world into the gooey, bloody, meaty bits. God doesn't just inhabit a body in Jesus. God enters fully into our reality, our gross, messy existence. We can find some comfort knowing that God's presence with us extends to these broken places, the bloody places, the parts of our lives and our world that are rotten and smelly, to our frustrations and anger and fear, to our dashed hopes and our unmet expectations. The second thing that stands out to me in today's text is that the bread of life metaphor itself changes in a very small but significant way. Here now, in today's text, Jesus, the bread of life, has become Jesus, the living bread. This small change affects our perspective and our timeline. Right? The living bread is a present participle, which means it describes not only its current state, but also its ongoing and continuous future. The living bread is the source of life now, but also going forward. It's not a one-time meal. It's a promise of sustenance and life for us now and always. Christ's body, his flesh, is the living bread broken on the cross, given to you as the source and sustenance of an abundant life. How might we be changed if we were to trust that God's redeeming work in the world, the incarnation, death, and resurrection of Jesus, was not just an event in the past, but is instead the source and the fuel for wholeness, redemption, and abundant life today, tomorrow, and forever. God meets our need for reconciliation and new life in the same way that food meets our physical needs. Our bodies weren't built to eat just once and then burn up some enormous reserve of calories stored away somewhere for the rest of our lives. No, we eat daily. This work of acquiring food, of preparing it, and eating it, it's something that we must do every day for the rest of our lives. And this is the way that Jesus describes God's activity in his very life. Jesus is living bread, given as the source and sustenance for eternal life, for abundant life today and in the future. Jesus himself becomes the very calories that we need to live this abundant life. And so what God has done in the person of Jesus is promised not just one feast, but a lifetime of sustaining meals that feeds our need for reconciliation and restoration, for forgiveness and wholeness. God has promised this gift, and we need only trust that it is true. So, when things don't go the way we expect, when we're frustrated and afraid, God lovingly brings living bread to the table, warm and delicious, right out of the oven. When we're far from home, full of shame or despair, doubt or anger, God meets us where we are and brings living bread to us in a sack lunch. And when it's not safe to be inside, when we can't sing, and when we feel the loss of everything that we've loved before, God meets us in the parking lot, or the side yard, or even our own living rooms, and brings bread to wherever we gather. And the best news is that God will be back with a fresh loaf tomorrow, and the next day, and the next day, and the next day. No matter where we are, or how our world and our circumstances change. Our text from Ephesians begins with a cry and a calling. Sleeper, awake, rise from the dead, and Christ will shine on you. God has promised wholeness, reconciliation, and a life of abundance. And more than that, God has promised the means and the sustenance for that life in the person of Jesus. And so, sleeper, awake, be joined with Christ and trust in God, who brings life to the world in the living bread of Jesus. Amen.
Amen.
8. Let me try one more time. 482.
Face shine on you with grace and mercy. The Lord look upon you with favor and give you peace.
Amen.
Thanks for being here, everyone, today. Just a few announcements before we go. The Quilted Community Sabbatical Project is wrapping up. Please return any completed forms that you have, or if you haven't done it yet, there's still time. Grab a form, fill it out, and leave it over here. Along those same lines, please do RSVP for the Quilted Community Picnic. It will be a celebration of the summer sabbatical. Pastor Katie will be back. New intern Emily Arisman will be here. That picnic is Sunday, August 29th at 11 a.m. after worship. And we would like, if you could, please to RSVP by next Sunday, August 22nd. And you can do that by signing the form. I believe it's out here as you walk out. There's also a link that's in your email where you can RSVP for that picnic. Yes, also please do come this Wednesday evening to worship 7 p.m. That will be my farewell celebration. We're going to have some sort of dessert. I don't know what it is, but Cindy and Tyler have been working on something. So worship with us at 7 to 7:30, and then have something tasty to eat, and say farewell to me. We are still looking for volunteers to help us run our hybrid Sunday worship service. Today, if you are here, you may not have noticed. If you are at home, you may have. We only have one person here today helping us. And so we're definitely going to need some help as we go forward into the future to make this a sustainable service to have and a quality service for the folks folks who join us virtually. So let us know, maybe talk to Tyler as we begin to ramp up some of those volunteer positions. There's still time to pick up backpacks for the LWR school kits. They're over here in the meeting room, in the gathering room, not the kitchen. It is the gathering room. It's right over here. Yes, so the kits are there. You can still pick them up. You can drop them off. There'll be someone here between 11 and 1 receiving those kits if you have them done. And the extra instruments in the balcony today are from Found Sound, as I mentioned. Found Sound Music Ensemble. They'll be giving a concert here today at 3. And it will be available online, so you can view it on the website or by logging into the same Zoom webinar that you joined for church. So it should be a great afternoon. Please join us for that. And again, just a reminder about the blessing of the backpacks next Sunday at 10 a.m. During the children's sermon. So bring your kids, if they're here, bring your backpacks. And if you're at home, have them around with you when you join for worship. That's it. Go in peace. Christ is with you.
Thanks, God.